Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about theoretical perspectives. This is chapter 1, section 3 in your textbook. So perspective is something that we have to consider, especially when talking about sociology, because everybody has a different perspective. Just to give a quick example, these are some optical illusions that offer different perspectives. The first optical illusion you can see here is something where when you look at it, there are actually two images present, but your eyes automatically are drawn to one image first. So, the first image I'm going to point out is some of you may have noticed there's a young woman in this image, and she has her head turned and she's facing backwards. So, I'll point that out with my cursor. This is the woman's hair, her nose, her eyelash, her ear, her jawline, and her chin, and she is facing this direction. The second image you may see is an old woman. This is also her hair, but now this is her nose, her eye, her other eyelash, and then down here you have her mouth, which obviously the little bar there keeps running into it. And so this just reminds us that everybody has a different background and everybody has a different perspective on life. This is another image that is very popular and has become more popular over the years, where when you look at this image, some people will see a variation of certain colors and others will see a different variation of colors. Personally, when I look at it, I see blue and black, but you might see a different color in that as well. Finally, the last image here is also a double image. You will either see a young woman or you will see a man playing a saxophone. So your eye may be drawn to the man. This is his hair, his nose, his mouth, his saxophone, his back, his legs, and his feet. Or you see the young woman, her eyes, her nose, and her mouth. She seems to have a shadow of what I'm assuming would be hair kind of across her face there. Okay. So in sociology, there are three main theoretical perspectives, and a theoretical perspective is a set of assumptions accepted as true. So sociologists use these perspectives to try to explain patterns and trends within society. So they're going to look at a particular issue or particular pattern within society and try to explain why that is. They're going to say, well, poverty exists because this is what's going on, or this social change occurred because this other issue is kind of behind the scenes. And so we're going to talk about those three theoretical perspectives today. So those perspectives are functionalism, conflict perspective, and symbolic interactionism. So we're going to start with functionalism. Functionalism, the definition is its approach that emphasizes the contributions made by each part of society, and each part plays a role within society. So think about it like this, that each part being like the family, the economy, religion, education. So all these are different aspects of society, and each one does play a particular role. So a family is there to bring up children, to try to teach them, the principles and beliefs of a community. Religion is there to help kind of emphasize that and teaching people how they should act within society. Education is there to make sure that they can help advance society. And then economics is there to provide for those people. They believe a change in one part will lead to a change in others, assuming that societies tend to return to a state of stability after some upheaval has occurred. So an example here would be like the Industrial Revolution, where people are shifting away from farming life to now working in industries and factories. And this is a huge change. And because the economy is changing, now it's going to affect other things like the family and education. So the family is now going to change because you have a different type of job. So you might be moving closer to those factories. The expectation of what parents are teaching their children is going to change to be more affiliated with the factory lifestyle rather than the farming lifestyle. Um, and education will change. Once education was based on what your parents taught you in the home, and now education would be kind of shifting more to that public education. So children could be taken care of and educated um, outside of the home while the parents work. They also believe that there's a consensus of values that exist within a society. So the example given was that in our country, there's this emphasis on democracy and equal opportunity. And that's something that we teach to our children, and it's something that we hold very close and value in our society. A little bit more about functionalism. They believe that most aspects of a society exist to promote a society's survival and welfare. So, all of these things, the family, the religion, the economy, the education, all of these things are there to help prolong society, to help make sure it survives and that it's a healthy society. There are two kinds of functions. The first is a manifest function, which is the consequence that are intended or recognized of an aspect of society. So, and when we're talking about education, we know schools teach math skills. That's its manifest function. That's what they intend to do. They intend to teach those math skills, those history skills, those science skills. But there are some underlying functions as well, and these are called latent functions. These are unintended and unrecognized consequences of an aspect of society. So schools are not only important for teaching those courses and making sure students understand academics, but it's also there for social reasons. So schools help children develop friendships, understanding how to act within a larger society. It teaches them how to behave within a classroom or even a workplace setting, because a lot of those behaviors within the classroom can be transferred later on into a work life setting. Finally, we're going to talk about dysfunction within the functionalist perspective. So, functionalists also believe that there is a level of dysfunction that does exist within society. These are any negative consequences of an aspect of society. The example given is bureaucracy. And so, even though functionalists believe that dysfunction tends to go away or decrease over time, some of it does still hang around, and bureaucracy could be an example of that. So, if you're wondering what bureaucracy is, think about if you go to the DMV, or you're going to renew your license or get a plate for your car, and how long that process is and how little flexibility there is. You have to come with certain paperwork and certain amount of money and all that. And if you don't have those things, they turn you away and you got to come back. That's what bureaucracy is. And so that would be something we're talking about as far as a negative consequence of an aspect of society. All right, our next perspective is the conflict perspective. This is an approach emphasizing the role of conflict, competition, and constraint within a society. So here they're focusing on disagreement among various groups in society or between societies as they compete and attempt to preserve and promote their own special values. They believe that those with the most power get the largest share of whatever is considered valuable in a society and limit others with less power. So here it's whoever is coming out on top, and whoever that is who currently has the power, constantly trying to maintain that power and limit the power of others. So the conflict perspectives, instead of looking at societies working together like the functionalists do, they are looking at society as these groups that are constantly competing against each other for resources or for whatever they consider valuable in that society. Here I've put people playing tug of war because that's kind of what my mind goes to, is that they're constantly fighting back and forth over this power or these these valuable things within society. Conflict perspectivists also believe that change occurs when the balance of power shifts. So if you think back to the 1920s, we just finished the First World War, and it's kind of getting closer and closer to the Great Depression, and women had to play more of a role when the men were away fighting. And so now that they've been able to participate more in the economy and been given some of that power in that way, they also begin fighting for their right to vote and for other equal rights within society. And so the example here is the women's movement to vote, and that would be considered conflict perspectivists would think that that would be this conflict over power, because women suddenly are having that power and then going out and making sure that they continue to gain that power in some way, and this way being voting. Our final perspective is symbolic interactionism. This is a perspective developed by Charles Horton Cooley and George Herbert Mead. This approach focuses on the interactions among people based on mutually understood symbols, and they define a symbol as something that represents something else. And an example here is the American flag representing the United States. Or you could say a stop sign, that red octagon that we press the brake down in our car for. We all know that even if the words stop weren't on there, we would be able to recognize that symbol and that color on that symbol and think, oh, I need to stop, because that's the society we grew up in and that's what we've been taught our whole lives. So belonging to a particular group will affect how a person reacts to a symbol. Now, if someone comes to our country from another country and they see this red octagon that has the letter stop, if they don't know how to read English, they may not know that they need to stop for that, because in their country they may not have the same symbol to represent stopping while driving a vehicle. Here I have a traffic light as well. So we know red means stop, yellow means slow or clear the intersection, and green means go. And so that may not be the same thing in another society or another country. There are three assumptions made by symbolic interactionists. The first one is that we learn the meaning of a symbol from the way we see others reacting to it. So how you perceive other people reacting to a symbol is going to affect how you feel about that symbol. So once we learn the meaning of symbols, we base our behavior on them. So if a crowd is clapping and cheering, a singer might perform an encore. They might perform another song. If the crowd is booing, then they might cut the show short and say, we're done, and finish it up. So we base that symbol of clapping or booing on our next behavior. We use the meanings of symbols to imagine how others will respond to our behavior. We all have this internal dialogue, this internal conversation with ourselves, and we try to visualize how others will respond to us doing something before we actually do it, and this kind of guides our actions. So if you think that someone might make fun of your outfit for the day, you might go and change clothes, or you might just be okay with it depending on your personality. So we have these internal conversations with ourselves before we act. And the interesting thing is too that everyone else is having these conversations with themselves as well. So you may be asking yourself at this point, which of these perspectives is the right perspective? And there is no right answer to that. Because these are all theories, none of them are actually 100% proven. And each theory can be applied to different situations that happen within society. So now you're going to move on to the next step in the lesson.